Hello, everybody. Welcome to Module 2. So I wanted to go over some things that are going to be due in this module and review a few things that we learned in Module 1. So the title of this course is Advanced Methods of Teaching Language Arts. But what is the language arts? Well, that's what we learned about in Module 1. When you think about language arts, some of you may think just about writing instruction or reading instruction, but what we learned is that language arts is much more than that. So I wanted to share a visual, and it's very much like the visual in your chapter. So on page 17, you had a visual about the relationship, but I like this one also. So when we think about the language arts, there's really 6 areas of language arts. We have reading and writing. And when you think about reading and writing, reading is receptive, writing is productive. You have to produce something. When we think about oral communication, we have listening. Listening is receptive, speaking is productive. You have to produce something. And then we have visual language. And this was actually added later on in the 90s because we know that there's so much that visually we have to interpret and we have to view. So visual language is very important, especially in our society. So viewing is receptive. Visually representing something is productive. So that might include making, for teachers, we're making a lot of anchor charts, right? We're making, we might do photographs. We have to visually represent oral communication, what we're trying to communicate. So that's what we talked about last week. We talked about this. We also talked about queuing systems and running records, and the fact that with the science of reading, we're trying to think about how we can adjust how we use those running records, because we don't want children to do strategies that are going to take them away from the text, take them away from decoding. So that's kind of what we did last week. This week in Module 2, I want to go over some of the things that your assignments, first of all. So let me stop sharing here and share a new screen with you. And we're going to just go over what you're going to be doing in Module 2. So for the Learn section, we can see that you have you're going to read chapter 2. It's called Teaching and Assessing Language Arts. And then I have 3 links of schedules that I just want you to look at. So look at these schedules to see how a teacher might form their 120-minute reading block. I have a couple 90-minute blocks, but most blocks now are 2 hours if you're in elementary. I then have a video, and this video is an example of the science of reading and what that might look like in the classroom. So that's what you're going to be reading. Under the what you're going to actually do in the class, you have a discussion post. So your discussion post, your chapter 2, a big chunk of this chapter talks about patterns of practice. By patterns of practice, I mean, what's your philosophical framework, and what's your pattern that you're going to be teaching your ELA block? Are you going to use on page 31, it talks about a literature focus? Are you going to do literature circles? It talks about reading and writing workshop. And the last patterns of practice is thematic units. So I want you to read those. But then I want you to think about something, though, because we watched the video about the science of reading. And as I told you, I've tried to update this class to make sure that you are knowledgeable about the science of reading and the implications of that on your instruction. And so chapter 2 offers ideas for reading workshop and how to incorporate reading workshop into your schedule. However, proponents of the science of reading say, you know what? Reading workshop needs to be changed a little because it does not provide enough explicit and systematic instruction in the language arts. That includes reading and in writing and visual interpretation of data, or a visual interpretation of language, I should say. And so what I want you to think about is how can we adapt or shift our ideas that is read in chapter 2 to align with an explicit and systematic way of teaching. For example, if you do a literature-based approach to teaching, how can you shift that in order to make sure that it's explicit and systematic? That's what you're going to write for your discussion post. Your other assignment is every week you're going to have a summary and reflection. So you need to summarize and reflect on your chapter 1. Okay? Make sure you do that. The last thing is in module 3, you have an assignment where you are to observe a teacher teaching language arts. So now we know that it could be any of those 6 components and be language arts, right? So you're going to do language arts, observe them, and then you have an assignment where you're going to be writing a summary of what that teacher taught, and then you're going to give a reflection on how it aligns with what you've read about best practices. For this week, all I need you to do is tell me the school name, the grade level, the teacher's name, because I want to know that you've started thinking about that project. Also remember in module 5, the expectation is that you will be teaching a lesson. So if you're not currently in a school, I need you to see about finding a place that you can do an ELA lesson, teaching that lesson. If you figure that that's just impossible, you need to email me individually so that we can work on how we can work that out. Okay, what I wanted to show you now is I wanted to show you a schedule from a school that I work with. So I currently am working with a school in, that's the wrong paper. So I work with a school on, let me show you here. I work with a school on language arts and trying to help them figure out what their schedule should be. So I'm going to get that real quick because for some reason it's not showing up. Let's see if this is it. Here we go. Okay, now here we go. Okay, so I wanted to show you a schedule. So this is a schedule that I developed for a school. And this is a school that about 90% of their kids are tier 3. So extremely, extremely low readers. So my task, as I worked with the principal in this school, is how do you devise an ELA block for a school that has really an upside down pyramid, that inverted pyramid where most of the kids are 2 years behind in reading. So I wanted to show you something that I created. And what I tried to do is take that reading writing workshop and adapt it. So we're still doing a reading writing workshop, but I want to show you a little bit how that was adapted. So this is a kindergarten schedule. So from 9:10 to 9:40, 30 minutes, going to be a short lessons. We're going to work on whole group instruction where we do grade level standards. That's the opening section. That's where teachers are going to work on grade level comprehension, vocabulary. They're going to do shared reading, interactive read alouds. They're going to do grade level standards at that time. Then they break off into small groups. In the small groups, we have 3 small groups that are 20 minutes each. We're going to have a differentiated structured small group. That's by the teacher. We're going to have a word work group, and we're going to have an iReady group. Now, with that word work group, part of that time is going to be writing instruction. So sometimes it's going to be word work. For kindergartners, it's mostly going to be word work. Then we have 9:35 to 12:15, an intervention called UFly. Many of you might know it, but it's an intervention that aligns with foundational reading skills. So I've created a schedule for all grade levels. This is upper grades. So this is more like a 5th or 6th grade schedule. You're going to see it's very similar. They're going to do a whole group instruction, and during that whole group instruction, they're going to focus on comprehension, vocabulary, and writing using their basal. We're going to get into small groups where we have differentiated small groups, and that teacher at that time can do decoding and encoding. And just as a reminder, decoding is reading, encoding is writing. So that's the time we can work on language arts. We have assigned work that the students are going to be working on independently that they learned from whole group instruction. And then they're going to be working on individualized iReady. And that's a computerized program that they'll work on. Then we have whole group instruction with UFly, or some students may be working on literacy circles. And then we have a wrap up. So I wanted to show you that what I tried to do in creating a schedule is take a readers and writers workshop model, but design it in a way that it's much more explicit and systematic for kids that are very low in reading. So you can do that. You could even do it with a literature-based approach to reading. But if you have kids that are extremely low in reading, they need explicit and systematic instruction in reading. And so that's going to be very important to do. They need a lot of think alouds, a lot of examples, and especially with writing, you need to use mentor text, and you need to use those think alouds to show students how to do reading and writing skills. So that's what we're going to be doing for this week. I hope you enjoy and learn some different things from this module as we really think about, again, in this module, we're really trying to think about the overall teaching and assessing what that looks like and kind of the big picture of teaching language arts. If you have any questions, just reach out to me. I wish that this background was my actual porch, but it's not, but I'm thinking about fall. You guys have a wonderful day.